and what happens with some of the policies there?
Well, on the IS curve and the real economy, and Mr. Warsh mentioned this a number of times, it is about that miracle, which is the microcosm, the little thoughts that we all have within any national experience. So you think the people of America will move this forward to a better economic growth and all the good outcomes from that, but we're a long way from that right now. Of course, we've got Chairman Powell coming up. That'll be very important to see at 10 o'clock, a redo there. The Q&A always different between the Senate and the House. I need to do a data check here, which is really important. Futures up 11, Dow futures up 64. The VIX goes from 34 through 33. I got a 32.78 on the VIX, so that really gives you a sense of the continued lift. We're not back to where we were before the difficulties of last week, but we're getting there, really grinding up towards recent strength. I've been watching a 2-year yield, can't get through. There's a foot on the 2-year yield. Maybe it's John Farrow's foot, a 0.19 on the 2-year yield. We've got much more forward. I am thrilled that I will speak with Professor Eichengreen here on radio with Paul Sweeney in a moment. We are produced occasionally by Riley Debs. This is Bloomberg. Stay with us through the day. Good morning.
Hey, y'all. Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you...
Listen. That's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favorite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. We're temporarily changing when 60-plus London Oyster photo cards, older persons' freedom passes and English National Concession Scheme passes can be used. From the 15th of June, you will only be able to use these passes from 9 a.m. on weekday mornings. This is to protect those who must travel in the morning peak and allows you to travel at times when you can safely social distance from others. For more information, search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up with the Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brince's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn. Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen.
about the losers in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
A lot of us are still in a bit of a guessing game, trying to determine how severe the downturn will be. The only thing that can bring an end to the crisis is containing the disease.
Finance.
We are the one country where people depend on employment for health insurance in the middle of a health crisis.
Investment.
Real yield is a scarce asset these days. It's just unknowable, of course, where things are going.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Wednesday morning from New York City and points beyond to our worldwide audience. Fed Chairman Powell delivers a second day of semi-annual testimony to Congress. We'll have that later. The message seems to be steady as she goes, with lower rates for longer. Equity futures point to a modestly higher opening. Rates are steady, as is crude oil. The U.S. dollar is slightly stronger this morning. Let's get the latest color on pre-market equity trading with Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at this morning?
Well, let's start out with Oracle, which reported results late yesterday. They didn't go over so well. The shares are down 3% in early trading. Fiscal fourth quarter revenue with the business software maker trailed analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey by the most in more than 7 years. And Oracle said first quarter sales will rise or fall no more than 1% from a year ago. So not much in the way of sales growth, if any, coming for Oracle. You're seeing the cruise line stocks take a hit in early trading, Norwegian especially down 10%. That company extended a global suspension of voyages through the end of September and also canceled some trips planned for October. So in light of that decision, you've got Carnival shares down 5.5% and Royal Caribbean down 5% as well. The airline stocks are holding up better. Looking at American, it's down less than 1%. Now, they actually got some support from Cowen. Their veteran airline analyst, Helene Becker, raised her 12-month share price estimate for American by 33% to $20. The new target is the highest among 12 analysts in a Bloomberg survey. Then again, you look at American's peers, you see at the moment Delta down about 1.5%, United also down 1.5%. On the plus side, PG&E up 2.5%. The California utility sold about $9 billion of bonds to help finance its exit from Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The judge overseeing the case said he would approve the company's proposed $59 billion reorganization. And PG&E pleaded guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter arising from that 2018 campfire. Yum China up 5%. The operator of KFC and Pizza Hut restaurants is seeking investment banks for a prospective share sale in Hong Kong. That's according to the Financial Times, citing unnamed people familiar with the matter. We've seen a couple of sales, the Chinese internet company NetEase and the online retailer JD.com raising money in Hong Kong. Yum China following their lead. DraftKings, on the other hand, down 4%. The sports betting company is selling 33 million shares for itself and on behalf of executives and investors. The sale represents about a 4.5% stake. Mylan up 2.5%. The generic drug maker reached a deal with lenders to ease terms of a credit agreement. The amendment will let Mylan carry more debt relative to earnings, so more room, more financial flexibility for Mylan. U.S. Steel, though, down 4.5%. The steelmaker projected a second quarter loss of about $315 million before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That EBITDA forecast was worse than analysts expected. And another steelmaker, Allegheny Technologies, down 6%. The company's selling an unspecified amount of convertible notes privately. The proceeds will help pay for a buyback of convertible notes due in 2022. On the other hand, you got MoneyGram International higher in early trading. They raised their estimate for second quarter revenue to about $275 million, higher than what analysts were looking for. You're seeing MoneyGram shares at the moment up about 4%, and Groupon higher by 6%. The online daily deal provider reported a narrower first quarter loss than analysts expected.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. We appreciate that update here. We have, again, slightly up tape here this morning. Listen, when I started in this business back in 1986, it was at a firm called Payne Weber in the internal audit department. And what they would do to us every Monday is put us on a plane, send us to a branch somewhere around the country, around the world, and really put our feet on the ground to kind of look at what's going on with the operations of the local branch. And you think about the audit business, it's really about being with your client at your client's location, really digging through the books and the operations and the internal controls. But that's not really possible here today. So the question is, how are some of these audit firms, the big audit firms, how are they dealing with that? Bloomberg tax accounting reporter Amanda Icone joins us with that story. So Amanda, again, back in the day, you had to be there with the client at the facility, really digging deep into the operations. What are the auditors doing these days?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. They're doing a mix. Technology allows auditors to really audit anywhere. The big firms have invested heavily into putting new tools and platforms and technologies into place. And the shutdown has really emphasized that that was a good investment, and they were able to pretty quickly move to working from basements and kitchens. But there are still some really key parts of the audit that you do really need to be there. I think we all remember the big fraud cases from the late 80s, Easy Best and Crazy Eddie. Both are extreme examples of fraud, but they also are examples of what happens when the auditor isn't there or isn't able to do some of these really key checks. One of them, of course, is inventory. Auditors like to be in the warehouse. They literally visit where the inventory is stored. They open boxes. They look inside. Normally, these are unannounced checks. They would still like to be there. But look, these social distancing restrictions are here with us, and auditors are having to get creative about how they do these really key tests without physically being there.
It's great, Amanda. You go back to Memorex, which we all study in school, folks, and they were literally driving, lighter trucks around L.A. with bricks in the trucks, saying they were booking revenues as well. Okay, that was ancient history, pre-computer and all that, and I get that there's got to be a personal touch. Where in the income statement is the greatest mystery? Is it like Germany, where there's like this worship for revenue recognition, and what we do, or is it down the income statement somewhere mysterious that I don't know?
It's a great question.
It's my only good one of the day, so go with it. Where in the income statement or even on the balance sheet is the greatest mystery, Amanda?
I think, asset valuations on the balance sheet is a huge issue right now. Valuations are changing. How do you estimate, what you're
come on. It's smoke and Amanda, stop. It's smoke and mirrors. On Bloomberg Surveillance, we call it bad will. You got to be in the room to talk about the bad will that they're calling goodwill, right?
Right. And with inventory, going back to inventory, a very tangible example of an asset. For retailers, in particular fashion merchandising, I think it would make sense to expect some impairments on that inventory. You've had retailers that have been shuttered for months. They've got inventory that's out of season, dusty, they can't sell it. You would expect impairments there. Valuations is a really key area that auditors are going to be spending a lot of time this year. There are major accounting changes that are happening right now, right, to quantify the economic impact that the recession has had on companies, and all of that results in more work for auditors. Revenue recognition, leases, hedging, these are some common pain points. I think expenses is something that the SEC is going to be looking at. When are you?
Al from New Jersey's looking at them.
Yes. Are you trying to hide old problems and just blame it on the pandemic? These are things that both auditors and the SEC are going to...
Amanda, I don't mean to interrupt, but Paul, I've studied equipment leasing accounting 5 times. I'm like the Red Sox. I'm 0 for 5.
Exactly. I don't know. So Amanda, is there any... do you think we're going to see any accounting firms kind of, when they issue their audits, next year, that they're going to have to put some caveat in there, which is like, hey, we did our best, but we weren't able to go to the factory out in the middle of America and check for inventory?
Right. I think that is the worst case scenario for audit firms, investors, and companies alike. No one is suggesting that might end up being the case. When it comes to inventory, the firms are talking about doing things like GoPro or live streaming video with GPS location tracking, putting off the inventory until it's safe to do so. In some cases, they are still planning to be physically there, and that is a sign of just how important that really basic check is. They are doing other things like, part of fraud inquiry, they're supposed to be in the room with someone when they're having these conversations with corporate management. They're doing those over video conferencing. They're looking for other ways that they can confirm and verify and make sure that the numbers are meaningfully accurate this year. So,
we got to leave it there, Amanda. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do it all. It's a bad habit. Amanda Icon, thank you so much. On the accounting mystery, I'm sorry, Paul, I get jaded about this, but, you go back to what we studied in school. Like the idea that that's gone away.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, again, my first job out of college was internal audit at Payne Weber, Tom. We had work papers, and you had to literally go there and look at the trade tickets and really be feet on the ground, talk to these people, watch their, and it's going to be interesting to see how some of these accounting firms will deal with it.
Really interesting. Or what you could do is call Cone Resnick, Bloomberg Surveillance. Brought you from Segui, that was. Good morning, Cone Resnick, Bloomberg Surveillance. Always brought to you by Cone Resnick. Advisory, assurance, tax. Get breaking tax, legislative, and business insights for financial firms. Cone Resnick, ready to help. Visit their coronavirus resource center today. ConeResnick.com/COVID-19. CohnReznick. ConeResnick.com/COVID-19. And we greatly appreciate the commitment of Cone Resnick to what we do here at Bloomberg Surveillance. With our news in Washington, here's Amy Morris.
Thank you, Tom. Quaker Oats is retiring Aunt Jemima. The image was created in 1889 for the company's syrup and pancake mixes. NBC News first reported the company says that image is based on a racial stereotype. You can look for new packaging coming out this fall. The president has signed an executive order on police reform. The Senate is set to unveil its legislation today. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina says every black man in America fears being stopped by police.
Senator Booker's mentioned that. Senator Scott said he's been stopped 5 or 6 times on Capitol Hill. I've never been stopped.
Graham's comments reflect a bipartisan urge to take action. Signs point to the coronavirus pandemic getting worse in some states, especially Florida and Texas. Andy Pekos is professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. He tells Bloomberg Radio states must put together a larger resource for contact tracing.
We would be hoping that at this point in time we'd have enough resources in place to identify those cases that are coming up, isolate them, and take other appropriate measures to minimize virus spread. That doesn't appear to be happening in several states.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, asking committee chairmen to exclude members who fail to comply with requirements to wear masks during committee proceedings. Members can always choose to participate virtually. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg. Tom and Paul.
Amy Morris, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Looking at futures here, clinging to a little bit of green here. We have the S&P futures up 9.5 points here. That's about 0.3%. Dow up 58 points, sitting at 26,250. Let's call it on the Dow. NASDAQ 10,006. That's up about 0.4%. Looking at your Treasury yields, Tom, not much going on there. The 10 years up 3/30 seconds, pushing that yield down just slightly to 0.74%. WTI crude off 1%, $37.93 a barrel. This is Bloomberg.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations. So we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment. Having access to drones that can collect data, so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
People's Postcode Lottery's 30k a day is back. £30,000 will be won every single day by players in the July draws. That's £30,000 for every player in the winning postcode. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 18th of June to play in the July draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
At Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stock index futures are edging higher. European shares are advancing as well as investors look past a worrying increase in coronavirus cases to government and monetary stimulus. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 7.5 points, Dow futures up 44, NASDAQ futures up 41. The DAX in Germany is up 0.6%. 10-year Treasury up 4/32, yield 0.73%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.19%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.3% or 49 cents at $37.90 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.4% or $7.30 at $17.29.20 an ounce. The euro 1.1238 against the dollar, British pound 1.2552, and the yen 107.30. And U.S. home construction starts rose less than forecast in May, suggesting builders were slow to resume work even as states across the country began to reopen. Applications to build a proxy for future construction also climbed less than projected. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. What a joy yesterday to speak to Peter Hotez of Baylor University, and he was heated, as was Dr. Fauci yesterday, about this scrutiny of a second wave, a third wave, a first wave, a fourth wave, and all that. It's not funny. State to state, there are discrete and individual challenges. Of course, we catch up with it to Johns Hopkins University, Lauren Sauer. Let's listen.
And I think what we're seeing is a second wave in the city after restrictions were eased. So the government's going to have to work hard to re-implement restrictions. It'll be a snapshot for us, as we're seeing our own uptick in a lot of states to better understand how we can re-implement restrictions to reduce second wave impacts.
What is the situation in the United States? So we're seeing new spikes. There are hot spots. What can you tell us about why, they're in certain states and not others?
I think a lot of it tracks with easing of restrictions. We're still looking at what some of the data is coming in, but we know that 18 states are having pretty significant upticks, and 22 states are on the downward trend. Several states across the country do have steady numbers, but, there are restrictions that were eased up in late May and early June, and I think we're seeing the impact of that being a little too cavalier with those easing of those restrictions.
If the 6 U.S. states that you mentioned are going back to some sort of lockdown or at least tracking and tracing, can they get a handle on it pretty quickly?
I think there's potential. I mean, so, these developments in drugs and things like that, they don't actually stop outbreaks. They improve the outcomes of patients. So the things that you mentioned, contact tracing, identifying, testing, putting lockdowns back in place if necessary are the key tools that we have right now until we develop a vaccine. So I think we know that they work, and we've seen a lot of data from early outbreaks in other countries and even here in the U.S. And so knowing when we really do have to pull a trigger and put the restrictions back in place is absolutely huge.
Lauren, I've heard everything from the virus is mutating to the one of the top professors saying actually they got rid of the virus. Where are we on this virus? Like, what do we actually know?
We haven't actually seen a lot of mutation, which I think is good. It is promising for better understanding how therapeutics and how spread happens and how we can use vaccines. I think what we know is that it is transmissible, and it does cause severe disease in a lot of people who get it. So we can use the tools that we have that we know will help ease transmission, which is social distancing, which is good hand hygiene, which is masking, to protect us. But as far as the virus itself, I think we're still learning a ton about it. I mean, there's so much science that's being done every day, and yet we still have so much to learn.
Lauren Sauer, the Johns Hopkins University, and of course that's been a great treat for us to talk daily to their experts as well. Paul, with the time we've got here, I want to get back to first principles, which is one thing we know for certain is 142% of our audience either owns Amazon or Apple, wish they owned it, or haven't had the courage to own it, like they're in the triple leverage cash fund, and they're like, someday it'll pull back. It'll pull back. I looked at their combined might today. I believe it's 3 trillion market cap, maybe 2.8. I can't. It's going up every day. It's, at some point it's going to be 3 trillion market cap. That's the bottom line. 940,000 employees. There's a point out there. They're going to have 1 million employees between the two of them, led by Amazon with their huge operation.
Yep.
And cash on hand of more than the Sweeney household has.
That's right.
It's like $231 gazillion. I mean, there's a point. You and I, we read our Ida Tarbell. We read Standard Oil of New Jersey, and I just really wonder. There's a point where there's just big. And you wonder when that is.
Yeah, and remember, Tom, I mean, pre-pandemic, there was, I guess a risk out there for some of these tech names, Tom, as we talked to the Dan Ives of the world and Anand Srinivasans of the world, following the tech industry, that there was a risk out there that, there would be U.S. congressional regulation of some of these big tech companies. And that was something that we've never really had in the technology business. We've had the European Union regulators look at Microsoft and then look at Facebook and all those types of things and impose fines and, changing their business models a little bit, but nothing really from the U.S. side. But there was definitely concern brewing over the last several years that might be a material risk at this time, because as you mentioned, Tom, these companies have just gotten so incredibly huge, but we're just not hearing that anymore. It seems to really have gone to the back burner here. So what we're seeing is just these companies continue to get bigger, not necessarily by acquisition, just organic growth, Tom, and they're putting up, 20% top line growth when the world's not growing.
Yeah, let's go mathy here on a Wednesday. We're allowed to do that, folks. You take their revenue per year. I don't have that number in front of me, folks. Or you could take their market cap and you run it log linear forward. And there's a point, like on market cap, what are we going to do when they get to $5 trillion?
Yeah,
or as a percent of GDP. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm bringing it up because it's like General Motors when we were kids.
Exactly right, and U.S. Steel and things like that. So, it's become such a. You think about the U.S. economy, 70% is the consumer, and the consumer is just, really driving a lot of these online businesses, these digital businesses, whether it's search advertising at Google or, e-commerce at Amazon. It's really the consumer driving, and it's just a change in global consumer behavior. And these companies are there. They've got what the tech analysts like to call moats around their business, where you want to get into the e-commerce business, you're going to try to compete against Amazon. Good luck with that. So you want to.
The only one that is Chewy. Only one I see in my building is Chewy.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. Yeah, that's great.
The only problem I have is vet bill thinks every damn Chewy box is for him.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, good, another one, great.
Yeah, so you come in every morning and there's a million boxes in your lobby, and you're like, here we go again.
It's an interesting discussion, folks, and I don't have an opinion on this and that, but I just the word BIG, I just wonder in the future if that's going to be coming up. A whole bunch of great conversations going on today. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg. Green on the screen, not like there was, but nevertheless, there's a bid on a Wednesday. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. hybrid, and connected. Honda, the power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
And action!
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script.
I was offered one. Get you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come, boy. I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell brought to you by SEI. Visionary asset managers find opportunity where others are challenged. Exploit disruption's potential with SEI's global operating platform. Find out how at SEIC.com/IMS. The S&P 500 is higher at the open. It's up 0.3% or 8 points at 3133. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.2% or 52 points at 26,334. And the NASDAQ is up 0.4% or 41 points at 99.38. 10-year Treasury up 5/32, yield 0.73%. The yield on the 2-year 0.19%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.5% or 58 cents at 37.83 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.4% or $7.50 at 17.29 an ounce. The euro 1.1243 against the dollar. The yen 107.29. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate that. This is a joy, folks, to speak with Ira Jersey, running our fixed income shop at Bloomberg Intelligence. He's just done a fabulous job with a research team across the shortest of short paper, stuff we normally call short, like 3 month and 1 year, and even out to 2-year paper, and then the view out as well. Ira, I could literally, in my bewilderment, talk to you for 3 hours this morning about what fixed income tells us about this market. I want to start with a Gina Martin Adams question. Are you, as a fixed income guy, treating this pandemic as a natural disaster? Across full faith and credit and across IG and high yield, is it like a natural disaster dynamic where all of a sudden we move on?
In a way, I treated it early on more as if there was basically a bunker mentality that was going on, which could be akin to a natural disaster or a war, right? So the idea being that that huge swaths of the economy slow down until the government comes in with massive stimulus that tries to get people and the economy going again. Of course, it's a little bit different because in wartime, the government basically hires everyone, whereas in this time that wasn't the case, where you had this massive fiscal stimulus, but it wasn't the government, doing public works projects and things like that, like you might expect during a wartime or what occurred during the Great Depression. But yeah, similar, very similar.
So, Ira, we've seen this U.S. Federal Reserve act early, act aggressively, I think messaging itself pretty well. Do you expect anything more from Chairman Powell today? Anything different at all from Q&A?
No, I don't really think anything different. I think he was asked, quite a few questions yesterday before the Senate, and I think he'll reiterate a lot of those. The House of Representatives questions tend to be much more political than the questions that Fed chairs tend to get before the Senate. So, do expect a lot of political wrangling. Each member gets 3 or 4 minutes, and they'll spend half of that time basically spouting their own political ideology.
Wait, Ira, that's what you do on Bloomberg Surveillance. I mean, it's no no different.
Well, fair enough. But I think the issue that the chair might have today is, and one of the things I'll be listening for as he speaks before the House is, where are members of Congress? Because we remember a few years ago, there were a lot of Republican members who were saying, we have to get the deficit lower, we have to get the Fed's balance sheet lower, and we have to raise interest rates, right? And that completely turned after President Trump was elected, where a lot of these members kind of deferred to President Trump's ideals of, ever growing deficits and lower interest rates. But I do think that there are going to be some members who are going to continue to ask him about, which he was asked yesterday before the Senate too, about how big the balance sheet's going to be, and is he worried that that's going to generate inflation? So he'll reiterate, I think, some of those things. The neat thing about the balance sheet this time versus other periods of quantitative easing back 10 years ago is that the credit programs in particular will probably shrink pretty aggressively, just the way that they're designed, because they're only buying bonds that are mature within 5 years, and so most of them, say, on average is 3. So once the Fed stops buying, say, corporate bonds a year from now or at the end of this year, basically the half-life of that is going to be pretty fast, where large swaths of the Fed's balance sheet will go away. And I think that that's something else that he might have a clearer answer on today than he did yesterday.
Ira, do you think Chairman Powell will talk about the need for fiscal stimulus? Is this a forum for him to do that?
I think he'll say that that's in Congress's purview. I mean, he did mention that yesterday, and he'll say that there's still a lot of ground to pick up, and that there is some fragility in the economy, and because of that additional stimulus might be necessary. It wouldn't surprise us. I think at this point, in the Treasury market at least, the expectation is for another $1 trillion-ish amount of stimulus. The question is, will that include programs that the Fed will lever up, similar to some of the credit programs like the Main Street program and the corporate bond buying program?
How did you respond, oh wise one, to the announcement by a small pension plan out on the West Coast that they're going to lever up to make their actuarial assumption? That it's not going to be 4% paper, they're going to do 20% leverage or whatever, try to get up to, I think, a 6-7% return. How did you respond to that?
So that's the scary thing that happens in an environment like this, and something that I think the Federal Reserve will start to crack down on, and other regulators too.
I agree.
Right?
I rarely interrupt folks. I'm doing it now. Ira, you're dead on. They're not going to. There's no way after Illinois and Dallas, Texas, they're going to let that happen.
Yeah, because the big issue with levering up, real money pensions is that you take such massive mark-to-market risk just at a time when you need to start paying out, right? So
explain that. Translate. That's French. Come on, Ira. It's an English-speaking show. Translate
so
mark-to-market.
Let's say that you have $100, and then you make that into $200. But and with that, you buy 30-year bonds at 1.5% to try and get it to effectively look like it's 3% bond, right? Well, what happens with treasuries is that if bond yields go from 1.5% like they are today to 2.5%, you wind up losing 1/3 of the value of those bonds. So now, instead of your loss being $30 out of that 100, now you've lost $60 out of that 100, and now you're really insolvent, right? So I think that there's going to have to be limits that are put on those things, whether they're done by state governments, but in particular things like the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. I'm sure we'll look at that kind of activity very closely.
I look at this, Paul. I don't mean to interrupt, Paul, but I think that this is so important. I look at this exactly as I look like hedge strategies in foreign exchange and in commodities, particularly gold, where everybody's a genius once. Twice. And there's some point out there, as Ira knows, where the 5th or 6th or 8th time you get it wrong. And that one time you get it wrong eliminates instantly all the advantage you had from being brilliant.
Exactly.
And the challenge is Tom, that's a good point, because it's the very successful traders who do those kind of strategies, they size their trades right. So they might use 20 times leverage in that in a trade, but that one trade will not bankrupt the whole fund, right? That's the difference, I think, between a good trader and someone who takes a lot of risk and doesn't understand the risk management of their portfolios.
So, Ira, Fed Chairman Powell and the Federal Reserve Board, they've signaled lower rates for longer. Is that something that you typically see the Fed do, i.e. talk about going out a year, 2, 3, in terms of their rate outlook?
Well, certainly the past 2 decades it's been. You had Alan Greenspan talking, used his bully pulpit basically to say that there was going to be an exceptionally long period of low interest rates, and then you had the creation of the dot plot, which was supposed to, which the Fed puts out every quarter, which is the members' expectations of where the Fed funds rate will be in over time, and that was created in the last crisis to basically say we're going to keep interest rates low for a long time, and the Fed's using that once again. Could they do other things that will make it more explicit that they're going to keep interest rates low for a long period of time? And the answer is yes, maybe. Something that Chair Powell was asked about a couple of times yesterday and talked about last week at his post-meeting press conference is yield curve control. So the idea that that the Fed might say we're not going to let 5-year yields go above 50 basis points for the next 2 years, right? Something like that would be much more explicit, but still be in that same vein of interest rates aren't going up fast anytime soon.
Ira Jersey, thank you so much. Bloomberg Intelligence, of course, on fixed income as well. With our news in Washington, here's Amy Morris.
Thank you, Tom. The European Union had suggested a raft of defensive measures protecting its industries from the looming threat of takeovers by companies bankrolled by China and other foreign powers. Those curbs could eventually lead to a ban on some firms from making acquisitions or force them to divest their assets. Signs point to the coronavirus pandemic getting worse in some states, especially Florida and Texas. Andy Pecos is professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. He tells Bloomberg Radio this indicates some states aren't able to contact trace possible cases.
There are a number of efforts across the country that are aimed at training people to be good contact tracers. A few efforts here at Johns Hopkins University are designed to do that. I think there has to be an investment in those resources so that we can continue to build that capacity to keep these case numbers down as we relax public health interventions.
He says states must put together a larger resource for contact tracing. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says the U.S. Open will take place with one big concession.
The tennis authority is going to be taking extraordinary precautions, but that's going to occur in Queens. Again, it will be televised, but no fans there.
U.S. Open tennis starts August 31st. And President Trump has signed an executive order aimed at curbing police brutality. The Senate is prepared to release its own legislation today. New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker calling on Republicans and Democrats to work together. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg. Tom and Paul.
Amy, thanks so much. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene. Paul, massive correction. Michael from Denver.
Uh-oh.
Emails in, says, I'm wrong. Powell, 12 noon, not 10 a.m.
Okay.
That was a faux pas on my part.
We caught it. Thank you.
I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
People love telling me I'm wrong. Michael from Denver, thank you for listening.
Yeah, a little correction there.
Out there in the Rocky Mountain. He has season tickets to the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying him now to take them.
That's right.
Exactly. They pay him to attend.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Elway's going to rebuild this thing at some point.
Bronco news. Just a headline and just seeing out. I think Amy had it as well. Senator McConnell talking about police reform next week. We'll have to see how that is as well. Let me do a data check, folks. I can do that, because I have the terminal. This is really cool. For those of you that have the terminal, the Bloomberg Claim Fame Bloomberg Terminal, get the iPhone app. It's very cool.
Yes.
It's different. It's a lot the same. Like the overlap's what, Paul? 80, 90%?
Yeah, I mean, it's got everything.
But it's got some very cool real-time stuff. And, of course, we use it constantly to try to pretend we're Karen Moscow. We can't be as good as Karen Moscow, but we try. We're open. S&P 500 up 4. Dow up 12 points. VIX 33.92. So there was some more enthusiasm 2 hours ago, and we're churning all in all right now. In the yield market, yields lower. That's a change. We had yields higher earlier. The 10-year yield 0.73%. What I've really been watching is Swiss franc, which we look at is not dollar Swissy, but Euro Swissy. Euro Swissy comes in today, much stronger Swiss franc. That bears watching. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Millions of euros are at stake as Bordeaux and its grand vineyards, the Chateau Mouton, Rothschilds, and Lafittes, must reinvent their annual All Primeur wine tradition, where merchants get a first taste and buy futures on the wine aging in the barrel. And how else does one reinvent themselves during a pandemic? But via Zoom and WebEx, of course, with wine samples shipped abroad. Our wine critic Ken reports the 2019 Bordeaux to be delivered in 2022 is delicious, powerful, silky, spicy, and lush, with tannins as soft as a kitten's ear. And prices so far have been cut 30% from last year, with Asian demand faltering, 25% import tariffs looming, and a global recession biting in. Hollywood's Academy Awards are another tradition adapting to the times. Next year, the Oscars will air in April, 2 months later than normal, with a larger release window for films to make the cuts. Movies that premiered on streaming platforms can compete as well. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Global news 24 hours a day on...
The Mini Electric was raring to go until ready, set, stop. We hit the power down switch. We waited. But now it's time to start up again. We're ready with the Mini Electric and whole Mini range online. Showroom safety measures are set, and we're feeling good to go. Find your perfect Mini at mini.co.uk.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stocks are rising for a fourth day and European shares advancing as investors look past a worrying increase in coronavirus cases toward government and monetary stimulus. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.25% or 8 points at 3133. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.25% or 68 points at 26,359. And the NASDAQ up 0.7% or 69 points at 99.65. 10-year Treasury, a 4/32 yield 0.73%. The yield on the 2-year 0.19%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.1%, down 43 cents at $37.94 a barrel. And COMEX gold is down 0.5% or $7.80 at $17.2870 an ounce. The euro 1.1233 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.33. Mike Wilson, chief U.S. equity strategist at Morgan Stanley, says the most recent economic data supports the narrative of a V-shaped recovery.
Part of the reason why economic surprises are bouncing so much is because expectations, collapsed, and that's also part of our view. You're getting a V-shaped recovery because your comparisons are just so easy.
And that's Wilson, as heard earlier on Bloomberg Radio. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate this. This is the way it works, folks. In London, not every month, but once or twice a year, there is a conference. And if you're at the London School of Economics, it's held in some old ancient hall named after Lionel Robbins or someone else, or in their spectacular new conference center, the Sheikh Zayed Center. And Paul DeGuar walks in, who's a good friend of this program and truly one of the leading lights of fiscal analysis in Europe. And he will stand up, and there'll be 4 or 5 worthies on the stage. But that's not what's important. What's important is the place is packed, and there are students down the aisles, up and back, and everyone, to hear a pin drop, listens. And they will listen to Barry Eichengreen. We are thrilled that Professor Eichengreen can join us this morning for a virtual conference. He is in California at Berkeley, not in London, at LSE, the London School of Economics. Professor Eichengreen, what is it like doing a virtual conference? It's just not the same as all those packed halls, is it?
It really isn't the same. You can do it in your shorts. You don't get the adrenaline rush you do seeing 200 or 300 faces in the audience, and it makes me worry about our pedagogy at the university. We can't really teach courses in the same way either.
I totally agree. Is Berkeley going to return yet? I know Penn State, we were talking to the other day, they're returning in the fall. Has the University of California at Berkeley decided to return?
We haven't decided, but I think there's a very, very high probability that it'll be mainly online.
You will have an extraordinary panel at the London School of Economics this evening on the pandemic. What will you say, Professor Eichengreen?
We have a new study that looks at the long-term political consequences of living through a pandemic. So we have data on 47 epidemics in the past, from SARS to Ebola, that affected in some manner upward of 120 countries. And you can see there's a long-term impact on people's trust in their government and their leaders, and it's strongly negative. If you live through a pandemic, you grow skeptical about the ability, the capacity of your institutions, can you say CDC, and your leaders to cope with those kind of threats.
So, Professor, I have 3 children that are in that age 18 to 25, that impressionable age where you start to form really strong personal opinions here. What do you think the fallout will be for those folks after having dealt with this pandemic here, which, we're 4 or 5 months in, who knows how long it's really going to go on for?
Those are the folks for whom we really find a strong effect. So if you live through a pandemic, when you're in grade school, there's no lingering, persistent impact on your attitudes. If you live through one as an adult over the age of 25, there's no lingering effect either. But if you're in those impressionable years and you know it from firsthand observation, that's when there are neurological changes in the brain. That's when people encounter college-aged students encounter new ideas for the first time. And those are the people who grow skeptical about the capacity of their government to do good for decades.
Too short a visit, but Barry, one final question, if we could. Do you perceive, with all of your work in international economics, going back to the classic golden fetters and what you've done with the IMF studies and such, do you perceive a shift in America away from our economic individualism, our flavor of capitalism, or will we reaffirm the way we do capitalism?
There's going to be strong pressure, I think, to have a more European welfare state where we do more in terms of providing health care, elder care, child care to the populace. And the question is whether we will become more European in terms of paying taxes as well, or a very serious debt problem blows up instead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this has been a joy. Too short a visit. Professor Eichengreen, thank you so much. Tonight, an important conference at the London School of Economics. Barry Eichengreen, party professor at Berkeley. Paul, just extraordinary, the difference between this virtual stuff and being on campus. I really feel for these kids that are missing that experience.
I absolutely do, Tom. I think, it's interesting for my college-age students, they're kind of dealing with it I think. The high school is really where you need to, and more importantly, elementary school, where the kids really need to be in the classroom and kind of building upon their knowledge every single day. And, I think the pressure is really going to be on local municipalities to get the kids back in the classroom as safely as possible this fall. I think that's going to be kind of the default. And, so we'll have to see how that develops over the next couple months.
I got an email from Afterthought School yesterday, and they're trying to figure out, how do you feed the kids in September?
Yep.
Basic stuff we just take for granted. How do you feed the kids in September? And they're surveying the parents and all that. I said, well, no foie gras. We'll just have to keep it simple. And she just wanted frozen yogurt sticks.
Right. Exactly. It's amazing how New York City public schools, were open during this pandemic for the meals, for the kids. Kids depend upon the meals, and the schools did a phenomenal job, I think, kind of filling that need during this shutdown.
We're going to drive forward through this Wednesday, and we do it with green on the screen. The Dow up 30, the SPX up 4. The VIX somnolent, that's a fancy Paul Sweeney word, somnolent at 33.75. Again, I noticed Swiss franc stronger through a 107. That gets my attention. Brent crude, $40 a barrel, make it 40.59. Gold down $7, $17.30 the ounce. We are produced by Timothy Harrow. This is Bloomberg. Stay with us.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan, gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again. And surprise that special someone. Happy birthday! From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. We're temporarily changing when 60-plus London Oyster photo cards, older persons' freedom passes and English National Concession Scheme passes can be used. From the 15th of June, you will only be able to use these passes from 9 a.m. on weekday mornings. This is to protect those who must travel in the morning peak and allows you to travel at times when you can safely social distance from others. For more information, search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Are you ready for the realest first-hand take of what's happening in the NBA? On their podcast, All the Smoke,
Former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson bring their fiery intensity to the mic, dishing on the latest news and drama from on and off the court without boundaries.
Half man, half amazing. My friend, our brother, Vince Carter, man, welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, my brother?
Man,
Search All the Smoke on TuneIn to listen.
Trey Wingo here from ESPN's Golic and Wingo. Every morning, Mike Golic Jr., and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golic and Wingo and start listening today.
As the science and medical world continues to learn more about COVID-19, we're all learning how to best live with it. Because the news is always changing, TuneIn helps you make sure you're getting the latest information on the pandemic with live streams of CNN, MSNBC, BBC, and more. Plus, evidence-driven podcasts like Coronavirus, Fact versus Fiction, and Podcast 19 for the latest stories and reports. Search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney.
The Fed action, essentially unlimited quantitative easing.
Companies taking aim at coronavirus vaccines and other treatments.
This could be a lower for longer hit.
Market sell-off going global once again.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
It's possible that this is going to be a scarring recession.
The Fed is really showing that they're doing whatever it takes.
A lot of people don't expect that the economy will reopen in full.
This is really hitting industrial America, and it's a major crisis.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Wednesday morning from New York City and points beyond to our worldwide audience. Coming up, we're going to chat with Invesco Chief Global Market Strategist Christina Huber to get her thoughts on the Fed, the economy, and markets. Plus, Paycheck Protection Program. Is it enough for black-owned businesses? We'll dig into that. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg, what do you have for us?
It's a stuttering start, Paul. Stocks are fluctuating as the recent rally begins to show signs of losing momentum amid a worrying increase in coronavirus cases. The S&P has edged down in volatile trading for a fourth day, even as infections increase from China to Brazil, and Iran warns it may need a new lockdown. Tower Hudson Research CEO Ben Laidler says we're beginning to see an accelerated economic recovery coming through right now.
I think that sort of V-shape, call it what you want, is going to continue and support earnings from here. And again, difficult for me to argue that markets just have the sort of rally that they've had over the last few weeks. That's not going to go on indefinitely. But again, I don't think we're retesting our lows here. I don't even think we're going to have a meaningful correction anytime soon.
Recheck the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is fluctuating right now, little changed. Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.1%, down 23, and the NASDAQ is up 0.4%, up 41. The 10-year is up 4/30 seconds. The yield is 0.73%. West Texas Intermediate crude is down 1.6% at $37.78 a barrel, while COMEX gold is down 0.3% at $17.3160 an ounce. The dollar yen 107.30. The euro is $1.12.12. The British pound is $1.2541. It's a Bloomberg Business Flash. It's time now for us to join Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney.
I'll take that cue. Greg Jarrett, thank you. Well, as we've been saying all morning, it's a whippy morning for U.S. stocks, so the volatility continues. Let's bring in Dave Wilson to explain to us what exactly is going on in this market, Dave.
Good question. I mean, really, you've kind of reached a lull in a sense. Here we are about 2 weeks before the end of the second quarter. We know it's going to be pretty abysmal when it comes to earnings. Analysts looking for decline in S&P 500 profit on the order of 44% based on the estimates that we've compiled here at Bloomberg. And so there's a lot to get through in the next few weeks in terms of, where companies stand, given what they've been through as a result of the coronavirus and how they're trying to recover from that. So, you have that piece of the puzzle. Beyond that, you're seeing some weakness in the travel stocks, especially the cruise lines, given that Norwegian has suspended its voyages globally through the end of September and some in October as well. Norwegian shares down more than 8%. You also got Carnival, Royal Caribbean lower by about 7.5% apiece.
So that's part of the puzzle here. I mean, that said, if you look at the category that those stocks are in, what they call consumer discretionary, which of course includes the retailers and a whole lot of other industries, I mean, they're actually the best performers of the day among the 11 main industry groups in the S&P 500. So clearly what's happening to the travel-related shares is not really affecting the broader market so much. But there's not a whole lot of direction here. And really, it's a matter of kind of waiting to some extent to see how things unfold on the corporate front and also with some of the bigger picture issues, such as are we going to get more economic stimulus or what?
Yeah, that's kind of where I want to go, David. I haven't really heard too much about the stimulus plan out there. We heard a couple of weeks ago, I guess the House had proposed another $3 trillion type of plan. The Senate didn't seem to be that supportive of it, but it's kind of been on the back burner here. It doesn't appear that the market's really fixated on that too much, does it?
Well, I mean, given what we saw with the May jobs report being as surprisingly strong as it was, it is kind of losing a bit of priority. Plus, you've had the protests over the death of George Floyd and, the anticipation that you're going to get some kind of movement in terms of, regulation of the police, if you will, coming out of that. Of course, we had the executive order signed yesterday by President Trump, and now you've got the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell talking about doing some kind of legislation next week. So, that's become more of a focus. And clearly the economic concern is still out there. It's just a matter of what's on the front burner at any given moment. And it doesn't seem to be that right now.
Dave, what does a company like a cruise company do when one day their stock is up 10%, the next day their stock is down 10%? They're already wondering when they can get passengers back on ships or if they'll even have bookings.
I think you just sort of have to carry on and try and keep your business going. I mean, the real story for the cruise lines and a whole lot of other companies is just being able to raise the cash that they need in order to get themselves over the hump when it comes to the loss of business coming out of the coronavirus. And, so far the companies have managed to do that. The airlines arguably are stretching themselves a bit further than the cruise lines in that regard. You think about American. We had a story yesterday that they're looking at a possible bond sale backed by their airport gates. And, that tells you that, companies are really pushing. I mean, United doing a bond sale backed by its frequent flyer program. I mean, these companies are definitely turning over the couch cushions, you might say, to find assets that they can borrow against to make sure they have enough money to keep going here.
Yeah, United's using my miles as collateral for their bond.
Mine too, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. I never knew I was going to be used for collateral. It's funny you mentioned the cruising. I'm not a person who has gone on cruises. I'm not a cruise person, but I have I know plenty of folks that are cruise people, and almost to a person, they're going back. They will cruise again. Maybe not immediately, but they will definitely cruise again. And I find that just fascinating, the hardcore loyalty of some of these folks who like to go on these cruises.
Well, sure. I mean, it's like people are going to be flying again, too, at some point anyway. It's just a question of how many of them and, to what extent did they even need to travel. You think about how things have shifted over the past few months in terms of video meetings as opposed to actual business trips, and that sort of thing is definitely going to have an effect. I mean, just look at what's happened to the valuation of Zoom video. I have my chart of the day out today. Points out that its market value has risen above the value of General Electric, one of the original 12 companies in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's a real sign of the times here in terms of how things are changing.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. Norwegian extending its cruise suspension through to the end of September, and I imagine the next few months will be, choppy waters, so to speak, for the cruise liners. But after that, then, if there is a vaccine or if there's at least fewer hospitalizations, maybe we will see people embrace the cruise industry again. I wonder about the airline industry, though, given the amount of air conditioning that you need on airlines.
And just, the general conditions aboard a plane. I mean, it's something that people are going to have to consider. And we've certainly seen that for the most part, I mean, the airlines just aren't able to rebuild their business, even though they're still flying. They've had to cut back routes. They've had to cut back flights. And I say we'll get a better idea of where things stand once these second quarter results start coming through. And we're really about a month away from seeing them in any kinds of numbers. So it's a lot to get through between here and there.
Dave Wilson, thank you. He is at The One Dave. He is also at NI Wilson on your Bloomberg. And don't forget to check out his chart of the day every day. He was looking at Morgan Stanley's charts yesterday, Paul, going back to 2009 to try and make sense of this market. Right, the Nasdaq up 0.5% right now, the S&P up 0.1%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average just up fractionally 16 points. We do have a VIX at about 34, and a dollar index that's strengthening today. It's above 97. So fascinating moves in these markets, and they will continue, no doubt. Don't forget, we are waiting for Fed Chair Jay Powell to continue his Humphrey Hawkins testimony on the Hill. That should get going around 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll be previewing that throughout the morning, along with our own Steve Matthews, among other guests. Now, let's get to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National News with Nathan Hager.
Bonnie, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he wants a police reform bill on the Senate floor next week. There has been enormous urgency to act on both sides of Capitol Hill after weeks of protest over racism in law enforcement. The Senate effort is led by South Carolina's Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate. His bill does not include a ban on chokeholds, unlike House Democrats' proposal.
The chokehold can be used only to save the life of the officer. That's something that we find appropriate because it's certainly better than having the officer have to shoot someone.
The bill would also require all police-involved deaths to be reported to the FBI. It would make lynching a federal hate crime as well. Aunt Jemima is being retired. Quaker Oats is changing its 130-year-old brand of pancake mixes and syrups that feature a black woman on the label. The company owned by PepsiCo says it recognizes Aunt Jemima's origins are based on a racial stereotype. It will remove her image in the fourth quarter and announce a new name for its breakfast products in the near future. Attorneys in Tulsa, Oklahoma are suing to try to stop President Trump's campaign rally there this weekend. Clark Brewster is one of those attorneys.
We were hoping this lawsuit would not be necessary, that the rally, the people putting the rally on would listen to reason and understand that such a collection of people in such tight quarters would result in a super spreader event.
The lawsuit demands the rally's management company mandate mask wearing and social distancing. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's car was involved in a crash outside Parliament this morning. A spokesman says one of his security vehicles hit the Prime Minister's car from behind when a protester rushed in front. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is driven by uncertainty about the virus.
Political reversals.
It's not clear that some of the Republicans up on the Hill are agreed with the Republican White House.
Economic shifts.
The macro clearly being driven by the coronavirus outbreak.
Everything seems to be in motion.
Will it also mean a global recession in your view now?
But here, you're on solid ground.
Looking forward to guiding you through all of this.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The Bloomberg Markets Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
Market sell-off glowing global once again.
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
What's the thought on Apple here?
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
There's very, very disturbing dynamics at work.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn. Subscribe today at BloombergRadio.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or iTunes.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
You're living in a world built on...
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment. Feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find belter solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Thanks to National Lottery Players, South Denbighshire Community Partnership are now delivering hot meals to elderly people in the community like Bob and Sarah.
Thank you.
And £600 million